I love Shanghai, but everything is so fake for me. I love staying in Suzhou because it's the real China and you can breathe Chinese air, the true Chinese culture.
So where are you from?
Italy.
Disclaimer: this video isn't titled the most realistic video about China to suggest that the content that I was sharing about China in the previous videos were unrealistic. Instead, the goal of this video is to showcase China's diverse regions and the history behind them. This is Comfort for Life, and I bring to you a compilation of TikTok and shoe videos for educational purposes. If you're new here, consider subscribing, and to returning viewers, I love and appreciate you. Kindly like the video. If you visited China in the years, it's time that you plan for another trip. And why? Because so many misconceptions about China and its development stems from outdated experiences of travelers who haven't seen its rapid growth. Let's quickly dive into China of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We can predict China has been able to accomplish a lot in such a short span. So we can predict the future. Let's try and predict here.
So I grew up in China. The experience in China and living in America is very different. So I made a list of things I feel like that would really confuse Americans about China. So first up, we had pollution days. Like Americans had snow days, we had pollution days where we couldn't go to school because we weren't allowed to go outside because the pollution was that bad. Living in Shanghai and Chongqing, I didn't have to wear a mask too much, but if you lived in somewhere like Beijing, you had to probably wear a mask because the pollution was that bad.
It happened to all the bicycles. 36 years ago when I traveled in China, there were bicycles everywhere. Every street was filled with a river of people riding bicycles. And every street corner seemed to have 100, 200, 500, maybe 1,000 bicycles lined up in front of a store or an apartment building. There were just bicycles absolutely everywhere. Now, when I see pictures of China, I don't see any bicycles hardly anywhere, except maybe an occasional electric bike. So what happened to all the bicycles? But most importantly, my question is, how did you know which one was your bicycle? Some of them were shiny and new. Others were clearly had broken and not able to be ridden. Did people steal each other's bikes, or did just everyone share and you would ride a bicycle, and if you needed one, you would just take one off the stack and use it and then leave it somewhere? How did the system work, and what did you do with your bicycle?
I love Shanghai, but everything is so fake for me. I love staying in Suzhou because it's the real China and you can breathe Chinese air, the true Chinese culture.
Good morning, my international friends. I saw so many vloggers on YouTube or Instagram, and they are trying to figure out whether there are some kind of slums in Beijing, and they visited the place that I'm taking you to. Actually, this place is one of the most particular commercial area. So it has a lot of old buildings, more than 100 years old. And it's just about the buildings are too old. A lot of foreigners will misunderstand it. They think that is a kind of like slums. And the people living here must be really poor. Actually, there are a lot of traditions behind the buildings. I will show you some of those. Look at the stone drums in front of the gate. It is called Mendang. It actually shows the status of the family. The round one means the owner of the family is a military officer, and the squared one means that is a civilian officer. Look at the top frame of the gate, the door stars called 户对. And the door stars refers to the wood or brick carving above or on both sides of the lintel. They come in circular and square shapes, and are usually in even numbers, either one pair or two pairs. The number of door stars also represents the family's social status and wealth. And look at this very narrow lane. Honestly speaking, that is the real original Chinese building. About 100 years ago, all the streets are like that. Just walking out of that area, it is a very nice view. This public area actually was built on a canal. By the banks of the canal, you can find super luxurious mansions. Well, you believe or not, this mansion you are looking at now, it's worth about 23 million US dollars. And all of this area are full of these kind of mansions. For sure, the environment here is extraordinary. Just by this area, I can see about 4 or 5 bridges crossing the canal. And I really like this one, the wooden one. I just like walking on this wooden bridge, especially during summertime. In the river, there are so many lotuses and little fish, some ducks as well. And for me to say, this area is super good for doing different kind of leisure activities in summer. Also, this area attracts a lot of travelers to walk around too. Also, you can see Mercedes, the Range Rover and Audi is just parking by the door. And do you think the poor people can afford these kind of vehicles? And Yuer Hutong is another very famous alley as well. We just go down this alley, we can just find the commercial street. Just look at the direction and pointing. Like this mansion actually is used for private clubs. And also for the central location of Beijing, the house price won't be cheap like this one. I quoted from a real estate agent. For a 7 square meter room is about 260,000 American dollars. And that is all the house price in this area. You can find this very small rooms, all about 200, 300,000 US dollars. And just for the room, not the mansion. And do you still think the poor people can afford this house price? And to my surprise, there's a new cafe and a restaurant opened. They sells burgers and different kind of coffee. It looks really nice. And if you want to experience to live here, there's a youth hostel. That's everything for today.
Have you ever seen fishing in the desert? This sounds like a fantasy, but it's real. On the edge of the Taklamakan Desert in China, there is such a unique group of people. They are the Rod people. It is also the most amazing nation in China. They are known as the fishermen of the desert. Do not grow grains, no livestock, generations, living among the Heizi group on the banks of the Darling River, feeding on boat fishing. They have no concept of money. Barter only. For thousands of years, has retained very primitive living habits. Longevity is their hallmark. There are centenarians everywhere. Everyone is smart. Good health. They are very common, unidentified ethnic group Rod people, now classified as a branch of the Uyghur people. Luobu village, located 35 kilometers southwest of Yuli County, Xinjiang. It's a desert oasis deep in Taklamakan. It is one of the largest villages in the west. As the saying goes, rely on the mountain to eat the mountain. Draw on water. They also rely on the wetlands around Wapna. Fry. Rod people who grew up eating fish. It is also very simple for the cooking method. The most special one is the flying grilled fish. Flying red willow branches everywhere. Cut some. And then, just skewer the fish and grill it. Although it seems simple, but the taste was incredible. Do you know the secret to their life?
China has a policy called the Subsistence Allowance Policy. It is a social assistance system established to ensure the basic livelihood of disadvantaged groups, and was fully implemented in urban and rural areas nationwide in 2007. The core is to provide subsidies to people whose per capita income is below the local minimum living standard, including special groups such as the unemployed, disabled, and elderly people living alone, to ensure their basic survival needs. According to the national average level, the urban subsistence allowance standard is $96.07 per person per month, and the rural subsistence allowance standard is $63.13 per person per month. Some people may wonder why there are more cities than rural areas, which is unfair. No, because the consumption level in cities is higher than in rural areas. And in rural areas, there are more or less some lands or fruit trees that yield some crops every year. For example, growing vegetables in one's own yard eliminates the need to buy them. The average price of 10 pounds of rice is between 3.31 and 3.55 US dollars, and the average price of 10 pounds of flour is between 1.92 and 2.88 US dollars. The money from the subsistence allowance is sufficient for basic survival.
So yeah, this is China. Big, modern, fancy cities with that futuristic vibe. And this is also China. Less developed, more rural. Okay, so a lot of you guys have been asking me Tina, I'm not really a city person. Can you just show me what countryside in China is like? So today, I'm gonna take you on a tour and compare the countryside in China and the US. So, you know what? My first impression about the US actually comes from country music. I've never been there, but in my head, it kind of feels like those classic songs I grew up listening to. Country road, take me home. Welcome to the Hotel California, lovely face. I mean, I'm pretty sure these songs came out before I was even born. Some songs just never get old, and the melodies and sound quality are truly amazing. Oh, and speaking of music, I love it. If you guys are interested, I could totally make a video comparing the Chinese and American music. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, back to the countryside. That's why I've always had this romantic idea of the American countryside. Gentle, beautiful, and super clean. It just seems like the perfect place to, I don't know, find some inner peace. But when it comes to the Chinese countryside, well, the reality is kind of different. A lot of people think of it as underdeveloped and not very clean. In many places, toilets are still very basic, old school pit toilets. And the infrastructure isn't always great. Of course, in recent years, some really beautiful villages are popped up, preserving traditional culture and architecture, but overall, rural development is still pretty uneven. China is huge, so naturally, some areas are super wealthy, while others not so much. That's why in China, people from the countryside tend to move to small cities first, then bigger cities, because bigger cities mean better schools, better healthcare, and job opportunities. But in the US, it's kind of different. A lot of top universities and big companies are actually built in rural areas, and whole communities have grown around them. Rural areas in the US have solid education and healthcare, plus great roads and freeways that make self-driving super convenient. Meanwhile, in China, rural areas still lack good schools and hospitals, so a lot of people don't want to stay there long term. And honestly, that's why China is still considered the world's largest developing country. I know a lot of people see videos of futuristic cities like Shanghai and think, wow, China is so advanced. And yeah, our cities have developed like crazy. But the reality is, there is still a huge gap. Some people think China is already a fully developed country, while others go the opposite way and over-exaggerate how poor we are. But objectively speaking, we are still developing, and we still have a long way to go. But hey, don't lose hope. China's 乡村振兴 strategy is in full swing. From road construction to infrastructure upgrades, improving public services, and promoting rural culture, things are slowly changing. It's a long journey, but I truly believe that China's countryside will become more and more beautiful, lively, and prosperous in the future. I think a lot of you guys have probably seen videos of Li Ziqi, right? So she actually lives in the countryside in a less developed area, but it's really beautiful. In her videos, she shows this peaceful, almost dreamlike way of living, which is pretty different from life in big cities. And honestly, a lot of us younger folks who grew up in the city are starting to really look forward to a slower, quieter life in the countryside. Like during holidays in China, more and more people are choosing to stay in guest houses in rural areas instead of traveling to crowded tourist spots. It's all about escaping the noise, slowing down, and just finding some peace, just a little getaway to recharge. Over the past 40 years, China's cities have transformed, and the next 30 years, our villages will catch up. I can't wait to see more beautiful Chinese villages rise and thrive. What do you guys think? Let's chat in the comments.
This is China, where you can see a different world. The sky-high highway you'll never forget. This jaw-dropping expressway, seemingly suspended in the sky, offers a drive you'll remember for a lifetime. Built at a staggering cost of $20.6 billion USD and stretching through 44 kilometers, it became an instant global marvel the moment it opened. Meet the Yashi Expressway, a record-breaking feat of engineering with 7 world-first achievements. Starting in Yunnan, Sichuan Province, China, it cuts through the Jin River, Dadu River, and 12 seismic fault zones before reaching Xichang City. Designed as a fully enclosed, 4-lane highway with a 24.5-meter wide roadbed and an 80 kilometers per hour speed limit. It's as bold as it is functional. Prepare for non-stop awe. The route features 270 bridges and 20 tunnels, meaning you're either soaring over valleys or burrowing through mountains. Every kilometer reveals postcard-worthy views, but the real magic lies in the elevation climbing. 7.5 meters per kilometer. The highway ascends a total of 1,518 meters. That's like driving a mountain, one of China's most sacred peaks. To tackle this vertical challenge, engineers crafted 2 30-degree spiral tunnels that coil deep into mountainsides, letting vehicles climb over 300 meters almost vertically. Even more mind-blowing. The highway's sleek steel, framework seemingly fragile but engineered to perfection. Its interconnected diagonal braces and cross supports create unmatched strength and flexibility, enabling it to withstand magnitude 9 earthquakes. So, daredevils and adventurers, are you ready to conquer this stairway to the sky?
Roads. The one thing that I wish Americans would learn from China is how to build some roads. When I tell you in America, it takes months for one little road to be done. When I tell you in China, it takes maximum 3 days for the roads to be done. When it came to the roads, China wasn't slack and they weren't playing games. I miss that so much because why does America always have construction everywhere I go? And of course the pictures, I feel like everyone knows about this now. And I understand it because I was probably the first white person they've ever seen in real life. Like when me and my family would go on trips, we would constantly get stopped. I would get stopped on the street all the time. But it was fun at first, but after a while it gets really annoying because you just can't not run into people. I thought it was crazy because I was 6, but people were making me their screensaver. That was
like New York because it was dirty.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Lisa. I'm here doing a small interview. Do you have a second? Of course, yes. Ah, that's good. Thank you.
Where are you from? You speak a very good English. I think you're from an English-speaking country?
No, I'm not. I'm from Germany, but I've been living in the US for 1 year, so that might be why.
Oh, so you studied there or work there?
I've done a year abroad, and I was in high school, and I did my 11th grade there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. So what are you doing here now? Traveling or working here?
My brother has a girlfriend and she lives here and we visited her. So that's why we are here. So it's just vacation. I don't work here.
Is this the first time you come here or?
Yes, I've never been to Asia before. I've been to the USA and different countries in Europe, but never Asia.
What was your first impression of China when you first landed here?
To be honest, I'm not a city girl and I thought it would be more crowded. I mean, there are a lot of people, but it's still a beautiful city and it's clean and I like it. I really like it.
Yeah. What did you expect it to be like?
I expected more people, but even though there are a lot of people, it's not a city that's very dirty. For example, I've been to New York and I didn't like New York because it was dirty, it was crowded. And I think even though there are a lot of people here, it's beautiful. I like it.
They both as very big cities. Yes. What's the differences between Shanghai and New York?
That's a good question.
You can think about that.
Yeah. I think when I went to New York, I just felt kind of lost. And I think people are a lot more polite here than they are in New York, especially because in New York they are not really interested. For example, no one would have stopped in the US. They just don't care. They care about their own business, but they don't care about other people so much.
So you haven't met any other people here who talk to you?
Since we are with the girlfriend of my brother, she's touring us around, so we don't have to talk so much to other people. But when we meet people in the subway, they are really nice and they wave at us like you did. You just stop and talk to me, and I think that's very nice.
Yeah, I want to do the interview and have a good conversation.
Yes, I like that. I mean, I'm always open for stuff like this, and I always like to talk to other people. And yeah, that's...
Hello, I'm very old, I'm unaware of that, but let me use my ridiculous age to help you. All the young people, all the young Laowai that are now on Xiaohongshu and trying to you know, just get interested in China and then go and visit China, travel, tourism, or even live and work there. So this is great. I think it's a fantastic thing to do. You'll definitely, you know, have an adventure there. You'll meet lots of incredibly friendly Chinese people who are always willing to help you out. It's going to be great, that's for sure. However, let me use my advanced years, and I lived in China for about 15 years, and I still go back there all the time. So let me use my old China hand experience to help you young people. So one thing is, don't say that some parts of China are not the real China and other parts are. So the funny thing is that things always come around again, right? We had the same discussions. I first got to China. It was a long time. It was a long time ago. I'm very old. But in 2003, 4, 5 in China, people used to say things like, "Oh, you know what? Shanghai is not the real China." And I've recently seen young Laowai say the same thing. This is ridiculous. So I'm helping you by guiding you on just don't say this. And because if you say this, and you can say it if you want, like, isn't okay. If you say it, you're going to sound stupid. Because everywhere in China is the real China. Factually, logically, legally, just is. Everything inside the boundaries is equally as Chinese as everywhere else. So if you're just a young person and you go to China and you say, "Oh, Shanghai, that's not the real China," it makes it sound as though you watched Kung Fu Panda, maybe 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you just thought that Kung Fu Panda represented China, and that it's just this land of, you know, bamboo forests and temples up on a mountain. You know, there's a big mix of everything there, and it's all equally Chinese. So Shanghai is just as Chinese as the temple on the bamboo mountain that you're thinking of from Kung Fu Panda, right? It is a accurate representation of a certain part of China, right? In the cities, they do certain things, and even, you know, the things that they like in the cities, let's just be stereotypical and say, you know, going to the Apple store and buying the latest iPhone, going to Starbucks for coffee. These things are equally as Chinese as the other things, the temple in the mountain that you might be thinking of. So yeah, it's all China. That's my advice from a very, very old man to you, the young Laowai.
Tell me you're in China without telling me you're in China.
You've watched to this extent. What are your thoughts? What are some of the predictions that you've been able to make so far? What is the future of China? Because all this development has happened in such a short span. It's like 4 decades, 40 years right now, that China has gone through all this transformation. The China that you saw on your media, has moved to what it is right now. A country that can build roads in 3 days. And how many other things that they are able to do in such a short span. So let me know what you think about this video. I am personally not a town person, but I wouldn't mind to have a big city like Beijing as my hometown, you know, as my town, as the face of my country. I wouldn't mind to have that, but I wouldn't live there. So are you a town person? Are you seeing the beautiful serenity in the villages, in the places that are a bit remote, where everything is quiet, calm? Are you seeing that? Because I love such spaces. I love such beautiful spaces. This is another thing that has been so remarkable. I've loved the way they have been able to leave these buildings right here. History is very important, and erasing history isn't good. And being able to keep the pieces of history, the pieces that tells about you, it's the most amazing thing you can ever do. And I'm glad that they have been able to leave this building in Beijing, in the biggest town, which is good. Is it Beijing, Shanghai? And I'm trying to get all these towns' names. I think I'm pronouncing them well. Yeah, so I love this. Like, as we do our prediction, I want to leave you with this clip and let me know what you think. Let's predict. Can you say one thing about the future of China in the comment section? Just one thing. Type it kindly. I want to hear what are the things that you're thinking about this nation. because it's mind-blowing for me. Like, yeah, everything is historic, everything is captivating, and I would want to explore, I would want to see stuff, you know. Who else want to travel to China? Oh, this has become so many people's dream. We really want to see, we want to go.
Crazy thought, but what if I actually bought a house in China? As you all know, I just arrived in Shanghai and I'm already obsessed with this place. The energy, the culture, the lifestyle, it's amazing over here. And now I'm seriously considering buying a house over here for in the future. But can foreigners even buy a property in China? And if so, what is the best place to invest in? Because I really don't know and I need your help for this. Let me know in the comments.